Today, we are going to be talking about email marketing for nonprofits and how it is a fundamental part of your digital marketing strategy. And to do that, we are bringing in Wendy Bonham-Carter of Donation World, and she's going to talk to us about email marketing strategies, best practices, fundraising, everything your charity needs to know about email marketing. So with that, let's welcome Wendy. Well, welcome, Wendy. I am very excited to meet you in person. We have been connecting over Instagram, and I'm actually going to link your Instagram in the card so that people can follow you as well. But why don't you give us a brief introduction to yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Joanne. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. So I've been working with nonprofits for more than 10 years now. I actually started my role in nonprofits as a volunteer, working, doing a volunteer role alongside my 9 till 5 for a small local community project. And that kind of set about my interest in working in the charity sector. And for the last 6 years, I've been supporting various different nonprofits in a freelance role. And then 18 months ago, I launched my profit for purpose organization, which is called Donation. We are an affordable philanthropic marketing consultancy. We specialize in the Google Ad grant, web development, social media, digital strategy, and email marketing. So quite sort of well-rounded from that aspect. But having worked for nonprofits, I learned firsthand and I saw firsthand how often the budgets that organizations have to work with are really limited. Usually the people working within those organizations are wearing so many proverbial hats. And quite honestly, when you're wearing that many hats, there just simply aren't enough hours in the day. And that's really what led me to create Donation. I wanted to create a truly accessible set of resources and services that were both affordable and in some cases even free. Because in my opinion, there are too many underfunded grassroots organizations out there that could be doing so much incredible work. So my passion is really helping them louden their voice and put the digital infrastructure in place to support and achieve their goals.
Yeah. And I know as a marketer as well that it's a different language. You write with a different language for nonprofits than you do for a business. We use a lot of the same business strategies, but the nuances are different.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, I'm going to include all your contact information below in case anyone wants to get a hold of you.
Fantastic.
And email marketing, that we're going to start by talking about the benefits of it, because again, that's one of those areas where we can learn a lot from business, but we do it a little bit different because we're nonprofits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it constantly amazes me, the studies that are coming out around email marketing, whether it be for, for-profit businesses or nonprofits. One of the similarities there is just how all of the studies show that it really does provide the highest return on investment of any outreach activity. So, that's, for me, it's quite incredible. If you look at any of the statistics, and there's so many reports that you can go through and so many statistics that we could pull out from today, but I won't bother viewers with that detail. But there's a couple that really stuck in my mind. One is that you can raise, on average, a nonprofit raises $78 for every 1,000 emails sent. So that's not sending 1,000 individual emails. That's sending one email to 1,000 people could get you a return of a donation of $78. So when you actually do the math there, that's quite incredible. Assuming you had an email list of 20,000 subscribers and 20 of them donated $78 each, that's a big amount of money. So it really can't afford to ignore email marketing. It's become such a crucial part of the way that we communicate online. And I think a lot of the studies that we look at or that are out there do tend to lean towards, the implication on donations. But aside from that, it's such an incredible tool for advocacy campaigns, for volunteer recruitment, for donor retention, and really so much more. So there's some incredible benefits for implementing a good email marketing strategy within the organization. For me, one of the things that really excites me about email marketing is it allows you to cut through the noise of social media. We know that social media organic reach is pretty much at an all-time low. I think it's still around about 5% of your followers will actually see the content that you put out there. So it's, giving you that direct touch point into, with your prospective donors and your existing donors, and really helps to cut through all of that noise of those paid advertising, all of the other people that they're following. So it's incredibly effective from that standpoint. I think one of the other key benefits is, we talk about the donor marketing funnel, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of similarities, sometimes between regular marketing and nonprofit marketing. And it's similar when it comes to the donor marketing funnel. It's still going to take somebody on average 5 to 12 touch points with your brand, with your organization's marketing messaging before they potentially make a donation to your organization. Now, if you're relying on social media for those touch points and you're only getting 5% reach, that's a lot of posts that you've got to put out to gain those touch points with those prospective donors. But if you can funnel those people into your email marketing, then you've got them. They're a captive audience right in front of you, and you've got direct access to actually communicate with them directly through their inbox, which they're far more likely to see. Yeah, I think another thing is, just the cost effectiveness of it. It's really not an expensive way of marketing. And like we mentioned, it's got a really high return on investment from there. But also, in terms of if there is something going on, if there is something that your organization is responding to, and you need to communicate that quickly and effectively, you're not going to be able to have that same quick delivery with any other source of communication, really, other than email. If you're looking to, post something out to donors, that's going to take a lot longer. So if it's something that needs a rapid response, email delivery is by far the most effective way to be communicating with your audience.
COVID was a great example of that. I was working with a senior serving organization, and when COVID hit, we needed an urgent, immediate response, and email was how we were able to do that. Yeah.
And I think people are really open to emails at the moment, and I know that in some respect, there is noise within the inbox, and there's ways and strategies that we can kind of get around that. But just to be in front of people that easily, it's not comparable to anything else. But I think with the technology that's continuing to evolve in email marketing, with the development in the softwares that are coming out and the capabilities, it now has become really intuitive and personalized on a level that we've never seen before. And that makes it really exciting for being able to talk to and segment your audience, and being able to put that right message in front of that right person at that right time. And I don't think that we've ever had the ability to do that as much as we do right now, especially with software continuing to develop, and the personalization that we can get from there. It's just making that activity so much more profitable for any organization.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about technology a little bit later on, but what I wanted to say is that I did a bunch of research for a video that I did on generational marketing, and email is the go-to platform these days as opposed to direct mail. It's still really only that silver generation that likes direct mail to receive their requests. So do you think direct mail is dead now with email marketing?
That's a great question, but realistically, it depends on the organization, and it depends on what's working for you or not. Like you've mentioned, there is a generation that would prefer direct mail over email. If you cut direct mail and that's working for you, you're going to risk losing that support and potentially that audience, because that's how they like to be contacted. But definitely, it's definitely about testing and understanding, does an email work better than your direct mail? Or how do you segment your current audience and understand out of that audience who really wants that direct mail versus who can you send an email to? So I don't think that direct mail is dead by any stretch of the imagination, but I think for a lot of organizations, especially those that are focusing on younger generations and bringing in new donors, email marketing is definitely the main preference.
Yeah. I promote email marketing on everything we do, and make sure that it all links together. The social media, the website, everything's working in sync.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe that email marketing should act as the cornerstone of a good digital marketing strategy. So with your socials, your blog, your website, if you're doing podcasts, and in particular, my favorite, Google Ad grants and any other paid efforts, pretty much anything that you are doing online and digitally can and should feed into your email marketing strategy. And some of those activities should also help to develop your email marketing content. So it's looking at it, reverse engineering it, and understanding what social posts are you putting out that are really resonating with your audience right now, and how can you incorporate maybe some of that or more of that into your email content. And it's really a cohesive marketing strategy for nonprofits. The email marketing should really be a key focus of that.
I often say, do what I say, not what I do. Because my own email marketing I have it. I mean, the YouTube, the podcasts, all the social media, the website is just, and I'm not building my email list.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting, because if you think about how often, so you've got probably a different audience, if you're running 2 or 3 different platforms on socials, maybe you're running Instagram and Twitter, or, a few of them. But think about how often those audiences are likely to re-engage, and especially if you're driving traffic to your website. Say, for example, you're using the Google Ad grant and you drive somebody to your website that's never heard of you before. What's the chance that they're going to come across your website and then actively go back? There's got to be some really big draw for them to go, I'm going to go and look for that organization again, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to donate, and it's the same with social media. So it's putting your email marketing as the forefront of things like your Google strategy is a great way to utilize and get the most from both of those efforts. If you have what we would term a lead magnet in place, something where you can provide something to somebody in exchange for their contact information and their email address, and it's their first visit to your website, they're going to want to sign up for that. And instantly then you've hooked them into your email marketing list, and you can then communicate with them. If you don't hook them in, and you don't have a way to hook them in on those first touch points, you're going to struggle to get them back to the site on their own.
Yeah, we have a client that we're working for where we're doing downloads. So we're putting together packages that users are very interested in, tips, tricks, checklists, all of that. And then putting it on the website, directing everyone to the website, download. Oh, by the way, give us your email.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a tried and tested way of building your email list, and a really effective one. We do the same, but we've actually put together a really fantastic guide on how to create the best lead magnet for your nonprofit. So this has got a ton of ideas in, some great examples. And what I would encourage people to do as well is look at what other nonprofits in your space are doing when it comes to building their email lists. Because I think you can get really creative with this stuff depending on what your industry is. But, I'll chuck a couple of examples out for good measure. If you're an animal shelter, and you've got animals up for adoption or fostering, a great lead magnet to put together would be maybe it's an ebook of dog training exercises, or ways that you can look after animals in that respect, because the people that are coming to your site obviously have a vested interest in in looking after animals. So that would really speak to them. If you had a homeless charity or something like that, people that are visiting that website are probably, if they themselves or someone close to them is looking for resources and guidance as to how to prevent somebody from becoming homeless, then something around that, creating a resource guide with local numbers and local organizations and local support groups to contact, would be another great way to feed those people into your email marketing. And what that does is it's really built up the trust. You've demonstrated that as an organization you're experienced in what you do, but you've also given something of value to the audience. And so instantly they're more engaged with you, and they're going to want to hear from you because you're demonstrating both your expertise and value.
Great tips. Anything else for building your email list before we moved on to some of the best practices?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I think, there's somebody actually that I will recommend who is not focused on nonprofits, but she is the top of her game. Amy Porterfield has some fantastic resources around list building. And she really drums into people that you have to have in your organization a list building mentality. And one of the things that she said that really stuck in my mind was, think about this from another perspective. What if you logged on to social media tomorrow and you didn't have access to your account? You'd spent the last 3 years building up those followers. You've maybe got a couple of thousand or, 20,000 followers, and overnight that access is gone. And this is by no means a scare tactic, but I have seen this happen firsthand. Then you think of the work that goes into having to rebuild that audience. And, I understand it's quite a scary prospect. So as I say, it's not a scare tactic, but if you think about that, it is a scary prospect. But if you've got an email list, there's no one that can take that from you. You've got an engaged audience that are going to be very responsive to anything you send out. So I think from that aspect, you really have to get into this list building mentality of, how can I continually build my email list? So where can I put these calls to action on my website? Obviously somewhere on your homepage, but statistically your About Us page is the second most viewed page on any website. So making sure you've got something on your About Us page which allows people to subscribe, making sure that you've got a sign up link in your social media bios. There's a number of different places, and we've actually got an article on the site which is 5 key placements for your lead magnet. So I'll share that link with you so that the viewers can go in and check that out. But yeah, it's just about keeping that at the forefront of your mind when you're developing your social media content. Are you talking about something that relates to a way to bring people into your email list? And that can even come, it doesn't necessarily always need to be from a lead magnet perspective. It could be from a storytelling perspective. If you're putting some really great storytelling content out onto your social profiles, talking about the work that you're doing and demonstrating some of the people and the lives that you're helping or you're enriching with your work, then that may be enough of a call to action for people to want to actually sign up to your email list and learn more. So don't be afraid to use that as a call to action in some of your social content posts as well.
Well, now we've built our email list. What are some of your suggestions for distributing information to that list?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of things that kind of make up a good email marketing strategy. There's definitely certain campaigns that can be considered. So if we talk about the sort of campaigns that you could consider sending out, the obvious one is a newsletter. It's nice, it's well-rounded, it kind of gives a nice overview of what your organization has done over the last, if you're going to send out monthly, over the last 30 days. And that can be a great way of engaging existing donors. Will prospective donors necessarily be engaged in that in the same way? Maybe not. So you want to think about not just sending a newsletter. That can be that sort of nice one that you kind of bring the team together to and collaborate from different departments on to send out. But it shouldn't be the only thing that you're sending out. You know, you think about things like specific fundraising campaigns and appeals. Obviously, you can tell those stories. You can really dig into where that money is going, the impact that that particular campaign is creating. But we don't want to overload the audience with a lot of requests for donations, because they'll get pretty bored of that soon and they'll probably unsubscribe. So it's also about finding a nice balance. A great one is just a really simple one, a thank you message to donors when they donate, and a welcome letter or a welcome series when somebody first subscribes. And that one for me is really important, because that's really the first touch point you've got with them on your email marketing list. And it's an opportunity for you to make an impact there. So I love that one. But also, like, an onboarding series. Is it somebody that's just come across your organization? Can you actually set up like a sequence which just drip feeds them information about who your organization is, the work that you do, the impact that you've created, and demonstrate that, you know, from a storytelling perspective, or demonstrate that from a data perspective. That can also be a really powerful one, because, again, like we said, with those touch points, you're being very intentional about the information that you're giving each of those subscribers. You've obviously, you know, most organizations will have some kind of fundraising events come, you know, on the schedule for the year. So you can set up an event email sequence so that you make sure that, you know, if you've got ticket sales or when registrations open, people are alerted, but then also they're getting reminders along that sort of timeline until the point where registration closes for an event. And again, that's a great way to save time. If you can set up sort of a template that goes out for that, you can just customize it for each particular event, but it's, you know, it's good to go, and you know it's going to flow through that particular time period and hit those people at those particular intervals, and that's going to maximize your chances for actually getting people signed up for an event. And also, like, things like a re-engagement sequence. So I know that I've been guilty of it. I'm sure you have too, Joanne, but sometimes we sign up for an email list and actually we don't read the emails. So, you can't be surprised when you will get some people that sign up and just actually don't engage. So considering sending a re-engagement sequence to re-engage or try and re-engage that audience, you know, they signed up for a reason, trying to get to understand or re-engage them into the work that you're doing, and then obviously understanding at the end of that sequence, if they're still not engaged, to actually remove them from your list and clean that list up.
Yeah. Gray mail.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, what about budgets and resources? Because I know that's a big issue for nonprofits, is how much is it going to cost and how much time is it going to take?
Yeah, and I think it really depends on the budget of the organization and the human resources available in the organization. You know, if you run an email marketing campaign effectively and you've planned it properly, you can probably manage that email marketing strategy in less than 10 hours a month. Some of that could probably be done by volunteers. And, you know, unless you've got a volunteer that's particularly, you know, well versed in email marketing, who might be able to take it on in its entirety. But again, it just depends on what human resources are available to you. The great thing about email marketing for nonprofits is, I'd say about 50% of all of the service providers out there offer a substantial nonprofit discount. And generally speaking, the cost depends on the size of your list. So this is really where quality over quantity plays a big part. You know, so it's about, when I mentioned about cleaning those lists, that can often affect how much you're paying. So it's another reason, a good excuse to stay on top of that as well. But, you know, you've got free, some free platforms. You know, MailChimp offers a free service. Granted, it's not necessarily the best, But if you're a very small organization with no budget to, no real marketing budget to work with, it's a great option. And there's a few others that offer sort of free offers, and most of them also offer 30-day trials, so that you can actually get in there and get testing with it before you make a real financial commitment to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I know quite often you do get what you pay for. I had a client that just couldn't afford it, but they had 2 websites and the MailChimp wouldn't allow for segmenting, and segmenting is so important. And it just, you do get what you pay for a lot of times.
Absolutely. But, there's also, I think it's also important to look at if you're using a CRM within your organization, which I know most nonprofits are, some of those incorporate email marketing as a service into their product offer. So it's always worth having a look there first. Quite often, if you can combine 2 things together, you get an even bigger discount. So it's always worth exploring that too.
Yeah, it is quite nice to have something that combines everything, that has your donor management software, email capabilities, tax receiving, like all of it in one place.
Absolutely. It does make life a little bit easier.
Okay. Well, any other tips on creating your email marketing strategy?
Sure. So I think there's kind of like a few key things that really make a strong email marketing strategy. And the first one is definitely, without doubt, content. So making sure that whatever content you're sending is engaging, and is also varied. I like to follow the 1 to 4 rule. So for every 4 emails that are sent, only one of those would be a direct ask for a donation or a direct ask for somebody to buy something. The rest of the time, you'd be sort of demonstrating knowledge from value-led content, or you'd be telling the stories of the impacts that you're creating. Or maybe it's, from a volunteer's perspective, if you want to run sort of, volunteer recruitment program. But it is about making sure that the content that you're sending out is varied. The other thing is consistency. So it's really important to kind of be consistent with when you're sending emails out. So if you decide that you want to only send an email once a month, pick a day in the month and stick to it. But if you want to send it once a week, pick a day in the week and stick to it. But I think one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what's the magic number? How many emails should I send? And that's $1 million question. And I don't think anyone can answer that. There's not a blanket answer there. But what it's about testing, as with anything in marketing, it's about testing and understanding what works. And there is definitely a fine line between getting it right and people feeling like they're being spammed. I think within a nonprofit organization, 1 to 4 times per month, I wouldn't be sending anything more than 4 times a month. But again, it really depends with what you've got going on. If you're responding to a humanitarian crisis and there's urgent appeals going on, you might want to send, more than 1 email a week. But anything outside of that, I wouldn't be sending more than 1 a week. Like I say, just the upkeep of your lists, making sure that they're being regularly cleaned, that you're paying attention to the people that aren't engaging, trying to re-engage those, but then understanding that if they're not re-engaging, get them off your list, because, they're really probably costing you money having them there. And if they're not engaging, then it's falling on deaf ears anyway. But also making sure that you're using personalization. And this is, again, you touched on it just then. The audience segmenting is really important, and it allows you to get really granular with how you're speaking to people, what messages you're sending to what people. Are these donors that donated 2 years ago but haven't donated since, or did they donate last month? There's probably very different appeals or ways that you want to talk to both of those sets of people. Or are they still prospective donors? Again, that messaging between those 3 groups is probably going to change. The frequency in which you email those 3 groups may also change, So it allows you to get very personalized with what messaging you're sending to who. And I think, as with anything in marketing, testing and analysis and just having a proper plan in place is really creating a solid foundation for kind of setting up that really cohesive marketing strategy. But I think, like we've touched upon, there's plenty of service providers out there. It's making sure that you select one that meets your objectives and your budget. We've got a great article on our blog. We've done a rundown of the best email service providers for nonprofits in 2022. So if you're considering moving or setting up with somebody, I encourage you to go and check that out. We've done all the research, and our criteria is very much, it's based around the needs of nonprofit, including nonprofit discounts. So head over and check that out if you are looking to either set up with a new provider or change your current provider. But planning your content and integrating that with your social media, integrating it with your events calendar and your fundraising appeals, it makes life so much easier, and it makes your whole strategy more cohesive. If you know that you've got events coming up on the calendar, you can prepare those emails months in advance, so you can get, if you've got volunteers working at that time and you've got surplus of human resources, put them to work on that. It's got to go out later in the year. You can come back and do a quick check of what's there, and is everything still relevant nearer the time, but you can get that work done really early and in no time at all. And I think pretty standard things like creating branded templates, so making sure that when you do send an email out, they all follow a similar flow or similar branding. I do advise people, images are great, but there's a big caveat when it comes to images in email marketing. And this is why I tell people not to rely on them, is there are certain email providers, Outlook is one of the biggest email service providers that people use to access their email. And a lot of the time you can't view images in those emails. So don't necessarily rely on images, but, do include them where you can. But I've just seen, I've seen a number of nonprofits actually put together newsletters which have gone out as just one image, sort of created in a PDF as a newsletter and put into an email, and 50% of the recipients can't even read what's there because it's all in an image. So just be aware of that. And obviously making sure that you're optimizing it for mobile. We know that, I think it's something incredible, like 60% of all emails are read on mobile devices now.
68 is the stat I last heard. Yeah.
68, there you go. Yeah, 68% of all emails are read on mobile devices. So, I keep sort of banging on about it when it comes to web development, but it's equally as important when it comes to your email marketing as well. If that's how people are accessing that information, it needs to be optimized for the device that they're accessing it on, for sure.
Well, it's probably not the best way to end, but any risks associated with email marketing?
To be honest, I do not see a downside in email marketing. I think the only thing you need to, obviously, organizations need to be aware of is if you are going to be spending budget on it, make sure that you do your research first and, if possible, get a free trial with something before you commit to a full sign up, especially if you sign up for 12 months. Usually if you pay annually for these things, you can't get out of the 12, you can't get out of it for 12 months. So even if you do a free trial and you're on the fence, start off with the monthly package. It might be a little bit more expensive, but once you're really comfortable with it, you can then take advantage of that annual, the annual discount and upgrade your subscription to an annual one. But be sure that you're happy with the email service provider before you sort of sign up for 12 months. But no, I think there's no risks other than the fact of, with certain email providers, MailChimp is one that's known for it. The delivery rates are not great in terms of email finding their way into spam and junk folders. So that is something to be aware of. But no, it's a fantastic tool for communication. We're only continuing to see the use of email rise, and the effectiveness for nonprofits increase as well. So I encourage everybody, even if this is sort of not what you had in mind, I really do encourage you to test it out and see what impact you can create with email marketing.
Was there anything that we missed?
Yeah, and I think the only thing is, like I say, I've mentioned throughout that there's a whole bunch of resources on my website, free resources, a really extensive blog, and a bunch of downloads for people. So hopefully, we just actually put together our 2022 email marketing for nonprofits guide. So there's a bunch of stuff on there ready at their disposal.
Perfect. Well, as I mentioned, I'm going to put all of your contact information in the description so that people can find your blog and your website and contact you if needed.
Fabulous. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Like I say, it was wonderful to meet you in person, and
it's always wonderful to connect with with other like-minded people that are delivering education in an impactful way to the nonprofit sector. So thank you very much for having me.